Hello and welcome to MagicMingle. Our channel is dedicated to helping you improve your English by exploring classic stories retold in modern English. Whether you're learning English or just enjoy timeless literature, you're in the perfect place. Today, we're diving into The First Class Passenger, a classic story by Anton Chekhov. This thought-provoking tale follows a conversation between two men traveling in a first-class train compartment. One of the men, a former government official and engineer, reflects on his life's work and his obsession with fame. Despite his many accomplishments, building bridges, writing scientific papers, and earning awards, he finds himself unrecognized by the public. As the conversation unfolds, the story explores themes of fame, recognition, and the fleeting nature of success, showing how society often values superficial things over genuine talent. Here's a quick summary of the story. The main character, a first-class passenger, recalls how he spent his life chasing fame but remains largely unknown, even after significant contributions to engineering and science. He shares examples of how shallow celebrities often overshadow truly talented people, leading him to question what it takes to be remembered. This conversation highlights the disconnect between true achievement and public recognition, providing a timeless commentary on fame. In this retelling, we've updated the language to make it easier to follow while keeping Chekhov's original message intact. Follow along as we explore this fascinating story, and let it help you practice your English while reflecting on deeper life lessons. Stay with us until the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more classic stories in modern English right here on MagicMingle. A first-class passenger, who had just finished dinner at the train station and had perhaps indulged in a little too much wine, sprawled across the velvet-covered seat in his compartment. He stretched out luxuriously, closing his eyes, and quickly drifted into a doze. After no more than 5 minutes, he stirred, his eyes half opening, and glanced at the man sitting across from him. With a lazy smirk, he spoke. "My late father always enjoyed having his heels tickled by the maids after dinner. As for me, I prefer a little conversation to stimulate my mind. I'm the same as him in that way. A full stomach makes me crave some light talk. Would you mind if I chat with you?" "I'd be happy to," replied the man across from him. After a good meal, even the simplest subject can stir up deep thoughts, said the first-class passenger. Take, for instance, the two young men we saw earlier at the station bar. You heard one congratulate the other on being famous, right? "You're already a celebrity," he said. It was clear they were actors or journalists of some sort. But that's not the point. What's got me thinking is, what does fame really mean? How do we define celebrity? Pushkin once called fame a bright patch on a ragged coat. We all kind of understand it in a vague way, but no one's really defined it clearly. I'd pay good money for a solid definition. Why does it matter so much to you? You see, if we could define fame, then maybe we'd know how to achieve it, said the first-class passenger after a brief pause. I'll tell you this, when I was younger, I chased fame with everything I had. I was obsessed with being known. I studied, worked late into the night, skipped meals, all in the name of becoming famous. And, if I can be honest, I think I had all the natural talents needed to succeed. First off, I'm an engineer by trade. Over the course of my career, I built about 24 bridges in Russia, laid aqueducts for 3 towns, and even worked in England and Belgium. Secondly, I authored several professional papers in my field. And lastly, I've always had a passion for chemistry. In my spare time, I researched organic acids and even developed new methods for extracting certain acids. My name is mentioned in foreign chemistry textbooks because of it. I've spent my life in public service, earned the rank of actual civil counselor, and have a spotless record. I won't bore you with the details of all my accomplishments, but I will say this: I've done a lot more than many so-called celebrities have. Yet here I am, nearing the end of my life, and I'm no more famous than that stray dog running by the embankment outside. "How do you know you're not famous?" the man asked. "Maybe you are." "Humph. Let's test that theory. Have you ever heard of Krikhanov?" The other man looked up at the ceiling, thought for a moment, and then laughed. "No, I can't say I have." "Well, that's my name," said the first-class passenger. "You, an educated man of a certain age, have never heard of me. A clear sign I haven't achieved fame. It seems that in my pursuit of fame, I must have been doing something wrong. I didn't know the right way to go about it, and instead of catching fame by the tail, I missed her entirely. So, what's the right way to pursue fame? Ah, that's the problem. Who knows? Is it talent? Genius? Originality? No, not at all. I've known plenty of people who were utterly worthless compared to me, trivial, even contemptible people. They didn't work nearly as hard, didn't possess any particular talent, and yet, look at them. Their names are in the papers all the time. They're constantly in the spotlight. If you're not bored of listening to me, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was working on a bridge in a small town. It was called. The town was dreadfully boring. If it weren't for women and cards, I'd have gone out of my mind. Well, I ended up having an affair with a singer. Everyone in town was obsessed with her, though I couldn't understand why. To me, she was utterly ordinary, a common woman with no special talents. She was shallow, ill-tempered, greedy, and quite frankly, a fool. She spent her days eating, drinking, and sleeping until 5 in the afternoon. She did little else. Despite that, people called her an actress and a singer. It drove me crazy. She wasn't an actress at all, and certainly not a singer. She had no talent, no passion, nothing. I, who loved the theater, couldn't stand the way people threw those titles around. She would sing horribly, but people adored her performances. The whole appeal of her art was her ability to kick her legs up during the performance and her casual attitude about visitors in her dressing room. Anyway, back to the bridge. The day came for its grand opening. There was a whole ceremony, religious blessings, speeches, telegrams from officials, the works. I was so proud of that bridge. It wasn't just a bridge, it was a masterpiece. As the ceremony went on, I stood there, my heart pounding, feeling like the whole town must be watching me. They're all looking at me, I thought. Where should I hide? But as it turned out, I needn't have worried. Except for the official dignitaries, no one even noticed me. The townspeople just stared at the bridge as though it had magically appeared out of thin air. That was when I began to hate the public. Damn them all. But then, something changed. The crowd started whispering, shifting, and smiling. They've noticed me at last, I thought. Not a chance. No, they were all watching my lover, the singer, as she made her way through the crowd with her entourage of admirers. Everyone's eyes were on her. They whispered, "There she is. Isn't she gorgeous? What a sensation." And then, they glanced at me, but only to say, "That's her lover." Can you believe it? One man, a shabby fellow with a scruffy chin, even sidled up to me and said, "Do you know who that is? That's the famous singer everyone's talking about. Her voice may not be great, but she has perfect control over it." I asked him, "Do you know who built this bridge?" He shrugged. "Some engineer, I guess." Then I asked, "Who built the cathedral in your town?" "I don't know," he replied. I asked him who the best teacher in town was, or the best architect. He didn't know that either. But when I asked, "Do you know who that singer is living with?" he answered immediately, "An engineer named Krikhanov." So there you have it. These days, fame isn't made by great works or genius. It's manufactured by the media. The day after the bridge opened, I eagerly grabbed a copy of the local newspaper, expecting to see my name in print. I scanned every page, and finally there it was, at last. I started reading, "Yesterday in fine weather and before a large crowd, the new bridge was opened by His Excellency the Governor, along with other dignitaries." Then, further down, "Also in attendance was the talented actress, so-and-so, who turned heads with her beauty." That was it. Not a single word about me. I was so upset that I actually cried. Well, I told myself, this is the provinces for you. They're all stupid out here. I figured if I wanted fame, I'd have to go to the intellectual centers, St. Petersburg or Moscow. And as it happened, at that very time, I had submitted one of my works to a competition in St. Petersburg. I left that town and headed for the capital. It was a long journey, so I booked a private compartment on the train. And yes, I brought the singer with me. All the way there, we were eating, drinking champagne, and laughing. But when I arrived in St. Petersburg, I discovered that my work had won the first prize. What a moment of triumph! I rushed out to buy all the newspapers, eager to see my name in print at last. I spent 70 kopecks on papers, rushed back to my hotel, and started reading. Nothing. I flipped through one paper, then another. Still nothing. My heart was pounding. Finally, in the fourth paper, I saw a small mention. Yesterday, the renowned provincial actress so-and-so arrived in St. Petersburg. She looked radiant, clearly benefiting from the southern climate, and down at the bottom, in tiny print, first prize in the engineering competition was awarded to an engineer named Kirkotlov. They even misspelled my name. The first-class passenger sat up straight, exasperated by the memory. That's how the intellectual centers treat talent. Meanwhile, by the time I left St. Petersburg a month later, all the newspapers were raving about my singer, our incomparable, divine actress. They stopped using her last name and simply referred to her by her first name and her father's. Years later, I was summoned to Moscow for a major project. The whole city had been clamoring for this work for over a century. I was there to finally get it done. During my time in Moscow, I also gave 5 public lectures for charity. I thought to myself, surely, this will make me famous. The newspapers will talk about me for at least 3 days. But nope. Not a single mention. The newspapers had stories about house fires, operettas, drunken shopkeepers, but nothing about my work or my lectures. I decided to test things out. One day, I got on a tram, and it was packed with people. There were students, military men, couples of all sorts. I said loudly to the man next to me, "I hear the town council hired an engineer to work on an important project. Do you know his name?" My neighbor shook his head. The other passengers glanced at me briefly but didn't say a word. Then I tried again. "I hear there's a series of interesting lectures happening at the museum. Do you know anything about them?" Again, silence. No one had a clue about the lectures, and the ladies on the tram didn't even seem to know the museum existed. And then, out of nowhere, the entire tram burst into excitement. People jumped up, rushing to the windows. "What's going on?" I asked. My neighbor nudged me and pointed. "See that guy getting into the cab? That's King, the famous runner." And just like that, the whole tram was buzzing about this runner, who was apparently the talk of the town. I could give you 100 more examples like this, but I think you get the point. Maybe I'm wrong about myself. Maybe I'm just an arrogant fool. But I can name plenty of talented people who've gone unrecognized. Do the Russian public know anything about our scientists, artists, or writers? An old writer can spend his whole life working, fighting lawsuits, writing dozens of books, and still never be known. But ask anyone about some singer, acrobat, or clown, and every baby in Russia knows their name. The first-class passenger was so worked up that he dropped his cigar and stood up, pacing in frustration. "Yes!" he exclaimed. Side by side with talented, hard-working people, there are hundreds of shallow, talentless individuals whose names are known by everyone. Just then, the door creaked open, and a man in a long coat and top hat, with blue-tinted glasses, walked into the carriage. He glanced around, frowned, and then walked on. "Do you know who that is?" came a quiet voice from the corner of the compartment. "That's NN, the famous card sharper from Tula. He was involved in the White Bank scandal." The first-class passenger laughed bitterly. "See? He knows a card sharper, but ask him if he knows Semiradsky, Tchaikovsky, or the philosopher Solovyov, and he'll have no idea. It's disgraceful." 3 minutes of silence followed. "May I ask you a question now?" said the man across from him, clearing his throat nervously. "Do you know the name Pushkov?" Pushkov, the first-class passenger, thought for a moment. No, I don't know it. Well, that's my name, said the other man, clearly embarrassed. I've been a professor at a Russian university for 35 years and a member of the Academy of Sciences. I've published several works. And yet you've never heard of me. The two men looked at each other and then burst out laughing.
Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe and share our channel Magic Mingle with your friends to enjoy more magical stories.